Yeah, so I started looking for homes like probably about a year ago, just kind of casually going through Zillow, trying to get familiar with what was on the market. Um, just kind of figuring out what was around here, what I could afford based on what I was making. And so just kind of casually looking, like I feel like a lot of people do for a while, kind of looking at these homes are like, oh, this would be a dream home, or like this would be something that I could move into soon. Um, and then uh, after the first of the year, had some things change where I was like, okay, I think it actually is time to get serious about looking and get to moving. So contacted a real estate agent. We found a couple things together. And at that point, I started thinking about it going, I know what I can afford right now, but I'm not sure what a bank would truly lend me. Like I do need to look at getting pre-approved so I can make sure. I knew with being self-employed, my income history was like a little more mixed up than being a traditional employee. So that's when I started calling around, calling different bankers, and uh, I talked to some people who literally would have a 5 minute conversation with me on the phone and kind of write me off and say, come back in a year when you have another set of tax returns. And that was pretty disheartening because it was like, I'm making good money now. Like I know I can afford to buy a home. I can like, kind of show you what my income is, but they wouldn't even really give me time to show them anything or look at anything. Um, or even say, oh, you're not qualified for as much as you think you are. Maybe try less. They just literally said, call again in a year. Um, so it was nice when I found Neo and I started talking to Ross, and he was like, yeah, I think we can make something work. Let me make some phone calls. I was like, yeah, this is great. And he got back to me and said, yeah, it's looking like we can make this work. He was on how the process would look. So then I got to go back to my realtor and go, yep, we're good. Or start getting pre-approved for this amount, and then we can pursue putting offers in on some of these homes. Yeah, working with the Neo team was great, especially as a first-time home buyer. I feel like I didn't even know what I didn't even know. So you have all these questions. I would, ask things are, and when you're working every day, probably pretty basic. And Ross was always right on it to explain, this is what this means. This is how you should be looking at this document, and then kind of getting, through the process when I have to get home insurance and go through the other steps before closing. Everybody on the team was on every single email, so it's simple to click reply all or throw a question out there, and somebody would answer me within like usually minutes.